I'm broadcasting from Southern California, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico. Hi, Kim. Welcome back. And of course, we have our guest, Walt Cox with Moov Financial. He is joining us just north of San Francisco. Hi, Walt. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Tulio. Hi, Kim.
California is in the house today, representing today. So here we go. Let's go right into it. Let's get to know you a little bit. Well, we're looking forward to the topic today. We're talking about banking and specifically payments within banking and data. It's going to be an interesting conversation. But before we go into the topic, let's get to know you a little bit. Walt, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah. First, thanks for having me on. I'm very happy to be here. And I was born and raised in Northern California, so heart of wine country. I think we've got 900 wineries around us. The area I grew up in was a combination of agriculture and high tech. Being 40 minutes from San Francisco, very much grew up in the dot-com bubble and just a lot of excitement and energy around technology. I was building a spreadsheet at 8 years old and, planning out how to just finance different projects I had, all on top of my Apple II that was a hand-me-down. And met my wife in high school. We're high school sweethearts. We both went to the junior college and ultimately to UC Davis. I had a chance to really experience software in college. That's where I joined a startup, primarily building school applications at a web service layer. So hosted applications all built in HTML5 and CSS. We had a team in Bangalore. So I was up midnight running sprints with developers in India. It was amazing. I would wake up at 5, go through my classes, get out by noon, go to the office and just work on software development. And I fell in love with it. I think the power of, software can't be overstated right now, but back in 2011, it still felt pretty early on. I graduated and a friend of mine was moving up at M Foundry and said, you got to come join this thing. Banks need help with mobile banking. That sounded amazing. I jumped in and very quickly found I'm not a great software salesman for lots of reasons. I'm much better at thinking through what are the problems we're solving. Software does some things extraordinarily well. Software doesn't do other things very well. And so I got pulled into running and helping run a strategic alliances group for a banking platform that was M Foundry that ultimately sold to FIS in 2013, where I then became head of emerging products in their digital group. Just a crazy fun job. So imagine you've got several thousand financial institutions who are customers who are great. Banks are pretty underrated in the fintech space because they're complex and they have hard jobs and they're curmudgeonly. And now imagine, they come to you with problems that could be solved in mobile banking or digital banking. How would you go about doing that if your budget is zero and your resources are nothing? And so we came up with really interesting solutions like appointment scheduling, financial calculators, in-app interstitial advertising that we didn't have to sell the whole market on, but we could sell one customer on. And then that would prove the use case. And that was really fun because it gave me a window into banking that number one, I don't think I could find anywhere else. But number two, it really exposed kind of the big enterprise challenges out there, which is Tulio has this division. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to online banking. Kim runs consumer lending. Those two don't talk to each other. So when you want to try and bridge that gap, God bless, good luck to you. Very difficult. And so I just had this incredible experience that really made me excited to jump into a bank. So I had an opportunity to run payments for a $5 billion credit union in Northern California called Redwood Credit Union. It was really fascinating hiring process because I walked in going, I know who your core provider is. I know who your mobile banking provider is. I know the systems and services you use. I don't trust you that you say you can execute well on the things you claim to. And so I was like this, young, thinking of myself like I was this really hotshot, smart guy. When in reality, like they're getting an ROA of, over 2%. They know banking inside and out. They don't need anyone to tell them how to do anything because they're crushing it in every possible banking metric. I actually was there to learn. I was there to learn how to run a team. I was there to learn how banking actually worked. What's a deposit account? What's FFIEC insurance? How do you actually orchestrate multiple divisions to work on a project that actually benefits the vision of the credit union, not necessarily the credit union right now, which is painful and it hurts, and we're going to have a lot of heartache and yelling, and Walt's going to get lots of angry emails, and so it was really again amazing opportunity to step into a financial institution.
Sounds like an amazing journey so far. So take us how you end up at Moov Financial. And
so Moov's like 2 steps from RCU. So so the credit union was awesome. I got recruited to join a company called Rapid, and happy to talk about Rapid. It's still an amazing company. I love what Arik and the team is building. Ultimately, as you scale a startup, I went from the 16th employee to I think they're up to 230, maybe more now. It becomes a very different company. And I found and discovered Moov probably about 20 months ago now. So I was a product manager inside of a unicorn. It's a dream if you're in a fintech space. You want to be on that CB Insights list. Like please anon, like know who I am. Know who the company I'm working for. We were, and Arik was speaking on the stage, but you still got to move money in the U.S. And the only way you move money in the U.S. is on ACH. And so I had this real like classic problem in the financial services space, which is buy or build in ACH processing, right? Either you're going to pick up a third-party sender and do what you can with either what your bank gives you as a sponsor bank, or you grab an off-the-shelf software service. For some reason, I felt we had to build something. I was very keen on like, let's do this ourselves. This is core of our value proposition. We can move money. We can do this. And I took to GitHub and I took to Google search, and I'm like, where can I there's got to be an open source framework for ACH. Like ACH has been moving money for 40 years, right? There is no way this doesn't exist already. Someone's built it. And I stumbled into Moov, and Moov, completely like blew me away when I pulled down the Go library and I started like sharing it with my Israeli developer, like, hey, this is already done. Like, look how much work this saved us, right? We have a command line function. We can read, write Nacha files. Like, boom, we're in business. And, a senior software engineer came back and was like, yeah, but it's open source. We really can't. And I think he was right in hindsight. We really can't ask our customers in good conscience to pay us for something that's open source. Like, that doesn't quite fit. And so we took to this path of like building it ourselves, and we took a year to do it. And I launched it at the beginning of this year. I passed a Nacha audit with it, and it was crazy painful. It's hard to build ACH well from scratch. And so that's how I landed and really came to find out about Moov. And really it started as a product manager, right? And having to build something. So
let's talk about today. The topic that you specifically chose to talk about is demystifying banking infrastructure, from payment standards to data models. And the question is, can transparency in banking drive meaningful shifts in financial behaviors? And so as we're moving into Moov, no pun intended, what I'd like to talk about first is what's different about Moov, specifically that word transparency. And like to talk a little bit about the name Moov to get us started, because I can see some double meaning here. I mean, obviously move quickly, ever changing, but it inevitably makes me think of a cow.
Yeah.
So what is that story? What's behind the name of Moov?
Yeah. So I am just incredibly lucky to work
just real quick, I have to
Yeah.
say, Hermosillo is famous for their cattle and their cows. So I'm not surprised. And also, Kim is from Montana, so I'm not surprised.
Awesome.
The first thing she's thinking about is moo, as in terms of a cow.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just wanted to say that.
Well, most people, and you say
it does sound like moo, but I get it. I'm sorry.
No, my wife's family is from Montana, so that's how all of this is interconnected.
There we go.
Fates have aligned. So, no, I'm just incredibly lucky to work for Wade Arnold. Wade is this insane visionary in financial services. Bootstrapped Banno as a digital banking platform that he turned and sold to Jack Henry. Jack Henry still has the Banno platform that they actively market and sell. It's a flagship digital product for the third largest core system in the US. It's phenomenal. And Wade is a very avid mountain biker, if I can call him that, mountain cyclist. I don't know enough. I'm a runner, so so sorry, Wade, if you ever hear this listening. He was on a ride. He reached this amazing point. He lives in Colorado, and he was thinking about, and you have to remember, Wade's been working on this problem for a long time. So similar to me in different paths, I saw ACH when I was at a mobile banking company called mFoundry. We were always on the periphery. We could never actually move money. We couldn't even like facilitate a bill pay transaction, but we kept running into this problem of people needing to put money in or take money out. And that was called external transfers at the time. You fast forward to a couple years later, Wade is building at BillGo, this amazing bill pay company, all about ACH. Whenever you talk bill pay, that's ACH in and out. And he still had the same problem, which is you're still building again and again. You're building new versions of the same standard. And so, what started out as an amazing open source project and an investment was this idea of, how do we take a standard and now give transparency to everyone on how the standard functions. You take the 600-page rulebook from Nacha, you say, this is the standard according to the rulebook. Here you go. And, so he's out on this ride, sees this, has this epiphany moment with the cows, Moov, and it all kind of comes together, MOOV, Moov, because at the end of the day, there are way too many companies. There's way too many product managers like me running around going, do I buy or build ACH? Oh, hold on, CEO. That A round you just invested, we're going to funnel a third of it into building this thing called an ACH library. And they're like, no one cares. It's not strategic. I can't go raise a ton of money on doing, another ACH library. This just has to work. And so again and again and again, we hear from people, hey, this isn't strategic. It just has to work. It's a critical part of my business. It's not a critical differentiator. So I think to get to your question, I don't think there's much more in the cow analogy, but it's fun. And that's the amazing part about Moov's brand, is that every time you go to the website or engage with Moov, myself, anyone in the team, it's engaging. And so you're going to feel the expertise and the intentionality behind what we're up to, particularly when you go to GitHub and see our open source code, which is transparency. Right.
So, let's break this down a little bit for those perhaps who are not in banking, right?
Yeah.
Let's break it down. What exactly does the product do?
Yeah.
Who are your clients? How do you make money? Because usually when you ask the question, how do you make money, that really demystifies it all, right?
Yeah.
If you could take us down that path for those who may not know what ACH or any of these things mean, that'd be awesome.
So,
most people know what an ACH is, but
yeah, no, it's a good question. Even my family asks the same question. We don't know what you do. We think it's something with computers. So, the reality today is the banking infrastructure in the U.S. moved right around $56 trillion last year over this thing called ACH. And as a business, you have probably come to a point where you have to take revenue in, and you have to be able to pay your employees. Most payments taken in today, can be argued or are driven in large part by card processing or bill pay. The other side of paying folks out all happens on payroll. And so, all payroll is driven, 99% is driven through ACH today. And so what happens is Moov comes along and says, hey, there is an open source standard to facilitate money movement inside of a bank account. So as a business, I can take that standard, I can do some work with a financial institution to be able to take money in to my account, which is make a payment to that account, or take money out and pay out to individuals, independent contractors, others. Where Moov makes money, very practically, is business come to us and they say, we love what you've done. Your GitHub libraries have been incredibly helpful because our developers were able to pull them down, use them, validate that you guys actually know what you're doing. They work, kind of important. And more importantly, we've come to the conclusion that we don't want to be responsible for that processing. So very specifically, we have an account. We want you, Moov Financial, to take money out of that account to pay folks, or put money into that account as we receive payments. Now, payments can be seen in a number of ways, whether it's a hosted checkout product, an invoice. There's all kinds of ways to facilitate, sorry about the noise, why funds should land at that destination. So a good example is there are lots and lots of general contractors. And so there are increasingly vertical SaaS companies whose sole mission is to take and simplify the financing process for that general contractor and that subcontractor. So are the funds available in an account for that GC to then turn around and pay out subcontractors? Conversely, as a dentist, a dentist most likely not going out and shopping different ways to acquire payments. They're most likely showing up going, I have things I've got to book. I've got ways people can pay. That's an integrated software stack. So that provider is who Moov wants to talk to, who Moov talks to today. When they say, hey, this whole business of ACH processing, is there an easier, faster, simpler way, right?
So I'm sorry, who is the customer? The dentist or the provider?
It's a good question. So I will say it depends.
Because part of it sounds like, okay, it's Venmo for business, oversimplified.
Yeah.
But is it the guys behind the Venmo? That's
it's a great question. Yeah, so I would say we have two models primarily, right? So on the first model, it's very pragmatically vertical SaaS companies, right? These are the folks that, for lack of a better word, they have a captive audience, and that audience is either to go back to the general contractors and subcontractors. So the vertical SaaS company has both. Both are active users inside of the model, but they aren't strategically focused on payment processing, meaning it's not in their wheelhouse to go allocate all their engineers to just make ACH work, right? And more importantly, they need more than ACH. They need wires, they need ACH processing, they need check processing. And so how do I take on money facilitation when I'm not regulated to do so? I don't have a sponsor financial institution who will help enable that. I can't stand up against an audit or the regulators coming in. Very practical, important things to initiate money transmission between multiple parties. So to answer your question, Tulio, vertical SaaS, and we have the first customer we signed and launched was really someone who just had a challenge being on a very large incumbent provider, where that provider had them pinned at a maximum they weren't willing to change. So to said differently, lots of independent contractors that need to get paid out. Easy to pay in small dollars. The moment it hits this maximum that the provider has an artificial and not willing to change that maximum, this person was reverting back to writing checks, right? So they came to us and said, listen, this doesn't work for our business. And more importantly, can you help us generate 1099s for the IRS all in the same platform? So it goes back to GitHub, right? It goes back to the open source model, to the transparency. If you can go to github.com and you see the 30 active projects we're running, and you can say, interesting, these guys can do ACH in and out, wires, check processing. Okay, now they're doing something with IRS and 1099 submission. Now they're doing something with Metro 2 files. I don't even know what a Metro 2 file is. What are these guys doing? You start to put together these programs that segments of customers get really excited about. Not all customers, because it's about making the right, product fit for these pieces of technology. And that's really where people pay us, is we're going to build a program that is unique to that vertical.
So you're facilitating the money transactions between providers, right? So let's say I'm a procurement software company, and I have a bunch of vendors that you can gain access to, and you're a facilities management individual, and you can purchase something directly without using a credit card or without doing a wire, and you're facilitating that transaction in a way that's seamless and fast and okay, great. So so it sounds you're basically a clearing network of money, right? That's more of a private versus the traditional ACH model where you're using the bank to clear the money. You become a third-party solution that's more of a private ACH clearing for
No.
Okay.
So this is really good question, because this is actually more, one payments geek speaking to another payments geek, which is we're not facilitating our own ledger that sits outside of the clearinghouse, right? This is like super important stuff. I apologize to the 3 people on the call who actually understand what we're talking about and everyone else who doesn't, but the ledger is a function of the regulated and licensed institution, meaning we're not a bank. And so the only way, I gotta be careful with this, the way that this functions and scales is entirely dependent on the licensed entity, right? So because I'm a former banker, I get super anxious and worked up about, well, who holds the risk? Why? How is this audited? What's the compliance? What's the GRC? The government, the governance, risk, and compliance program. Like I start getting spun out on the different, Reg E, Reg D. Like why? How is all this functioning? So that if I put it in front of a sponsor financial institution, Moov has one and another. They've signed off on it. The lawyers have signed off on it. Now the regulator has signed off on it. Okay, we're ready to go. Now let's sell it. Right? Like, I am not a fan of selling things that aren't blessed in that order. Right? Bank, regulator, lawyers. Okay, now let's go do it.
Got it. So again, at the risk of oversimplifying, you're sort of being the concierge to what is otherwise an open source solution.
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it. That's a really good way. Yeah. One of our co-founders likes to use the example of Home Depot. We're going to, you can go down the aisles and everything's free. Look, this is where I do OFAC sanction screening checking. Free. Awesome. This is where I do ACH in and out. Free. They get to the checkout. It's free. They walk out. They get home. They're like, okay, now I got to build this house. I don't want to do that. I just want to live in the house. Awesome. Come talk to us. We're ready to build the house for you. So
nice.
So what is this shift? The tagline that you chose today is driving that meaningful shift, which is directly related to the fact that you're open source.
Yeah.
So why is that the direction that financial institutions and behaviors should be moving? What's the benefit, and is that the future?
That's a great question. So at the risk of segmenting banks out for a second, because I think banks have a tremendously important part to play, but I want to take a step back and open it more broadly, which is if we're not spending all of our time rebuilding the same things, what could we be spending our time doing? Right. So one of my favorite examples of this with Moov is, there's a 24-year-old engineer inside of a top 5 financial institution who had a very simple use case. Take these 5 trillion transactions, test them through ACH to see what comes out, because you're building a machine learning algorithm, and you're going to learn about what exceptions happen with massive, with a massive sample size. So your model is going to get attenuated very well to what it needs to find with that amount of transaction data. Great. How do I test ACH? You don't. There's nothing. The Fed doesn't give you a test harness. You're not going to get it from your sponsor bank. Go figure it out. And he's like, okay. So he goes to GitHub. He pulls down Moov. He runs 5 trillion transactions through it. Everyone at Moov celebrates because we get 1,500 edge cases out of it. Look, they found the addenda record we weren't supporting like we should yet. Let's go fix it. Okay, awesome, right? We have one of the most hardened ACH libraries, not because I said so, who cares what I think, but because 5 trillion transactions have ran through it from a top 5 bank, not because they were running and processing ACH, because they were teaching a machine learning model. That's super interesting. Because if you can have technology doing what it does well, the people who were previously working Excel exception reports can now do other things inside the bank. They can actually be, I would argue, more productive, and their time better spent than why this entry is accepting out because of this piece that's missing in the file header. And no. That's not a good use of a person's time.
So, Walt, we're coming up on time, but at the risk of getting dangerous here a little bit, here's what I'm hearing, right? I think of transparency in financial transactions. What comes to mind is Bitcoin and blockchain, which is the promise to provide transparency where you can mine this information. Everything is, the ledger is constantly accessible. There's no hidden stuff going on, right? It sounds to me that what you guys are enabling is within the confine of the traditional banking model, the ACH model, is something similar. So are you basically an alternative or competing within that environment? No. Okay.
Julio's got all the good questions today. This is awesome. No, I think the transparency that blockchain offers is very friendly for what I'm going to call a consumer market or a consumer use case, right? I want to see the ledger and I want to see who made money along the way for every entry. Awesome. If I'm a consumer, particularly auditing certain use cases, I want to know how my church spends money. Let's put them on the blockchain, right?
Right.
They'll never get there, but let's try it. No, I think what Moov offers is something a little bit unique, which in the past I would come to you and I would say, hey, I've built this amazing thing. Yes, it rides on ACH, but no one does it as well as I do. I'm special. I'm unique. Pay me. Moov comes along and says, look, guys, it's a standard. You can use the standard. Anyone can use the standard. It's just the standard. It's how it works. You're going to pay me because I'm going to show you with data and machine learning and tools how you can do this faster, easier, more efficiently than anything else you've ever seen before. And that's for wires, check processing, and ACH. And all of a sudden, people's hair blows back and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sick of working exception reports. I'm sick and tired of my finance person dealing with multiple GLs that never balance for whatever reason. Help us, right? People get excited fixing dumb problems, and that we're working on dumb things that should already have, if you ask Wade, he'll say this should already have been done 10 years ago. I don't know. Why hasn't this already been done? So,
well, I look, it sounds like you're solving what's often taken for granted, but the guys who are working on it every day, it's a nightmare. Those little things taken for granted is a living nightmare. So you're solving the little things that would otherwise be no big deal, but to the end users who actually live it every day, you're making their lives easier. So,
and everyone's lives easier. And your own, I think I get this visualization of everybody's trying to be like, my precious, keeping it to themselves.
Yes.
And instead you're like, hey, what can we learn from you? What can you learn from us? And that's a really great example of hey, they pumped this into machine learning and we can benefit from this. Now we're able to use this in effect to get better or to even help sell ourselves. And that's part of what we're trying to do, right, with this community. And I think, to me, that's my takeaway today, is that shift toward opening us up as humanity and businesses to not have to feel like we need to hoard everything, right? And if what's good for everyone is good for me, right? And I think that's
all boats rise. Yeah, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm going to steal that's Wade's quote, so I'm going to steal it because he's absolutely right. So, well, I love the golem example. That is perfect. I'm definitely using that.
Right, absolutely. Well, Walt, it's been great to have you. We're up on time, but I have one final quick question. If you could squeeze it in a 30 seconds or so, what's the end goal? What's next for you guys?
So I don't know the end goal, TBD. I think what's next is you're going to see, I talked a little bit about how these programs get packaged. You're going to see a few launched in these next few months. We launched payouts, I'd say 3 weeks ago now. Next in line is really the inverse of that, which is how do you, if you're a business just taking card payments today, how do you add a bank account on file in a secure way where you're not responsible for that data? And you can now generate an ACH debit, which is going to save you a bundle of money on every transaction if it's not going over card rails. My friends at Visa won't be super excited about that, but that's really what we're up to. And the other side is, what does it mean to have a ledger? And what does it mean to see a balance and see that balance get effectuated by entries? And so we're doing just a tremendous amount of work around those two problems. And we keep getting feedback like, yeah, we need that, help us. And so we're super excited about that.
Excellent. Well, it's been great to have you with us. Just stay with us as we go off the air. And I want to invite all the audience to come back. We have another show Thursday. I think we're still pending for tomorrow, but we have one Thursday, which is the social dilemma of behavior technology, utopia or dystopia. And that's with Annie Chang, who's the founder at Supercharge Labs. Want to just quickly remind everyone, we've added a new feature on dojo.nearsoft.com where you can click on add to the calendar. So we have added that feature recently. So if you're watching and you want to kind of put a specific title on your calendar, you have the ability to do that now right on the site. And it'll remind you that that show is coming on and that guest is going to be on. So take advantage of that. It's a great way to stay tuned with what's happening next. Thanks for joining us today. And until we see you next time, everyone, please stay safe.